So let's talk about two related stories concerning the January 6th insurrection and how people are trying to get away with it. Donald Trump, by claiming magical absolute immunity, and congressional Republicans by fighting to prevent an investigation into the attack on the Capitol. And that is shameful. Because getting to the bottom of who organized, who orchestrated, who supported, who encouraged, who incited that violent attack on the U.S. Capitol, like justice, matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So let's talk about two related stories concerning the insurrection, the January 6th attack on the Capitol, and how people are trying desperately to get away with it. Let's start with Donald Trump, because this week, Donald Trump's attorney told a federal judge that he is untouchable in a court of law because he has, quote, absolute immunity, close quote. Here's how The Independent reported that story. Headline, Trump tells court he has absolute immunity over January 6th. And the article begins, Donald Trump told a court he has absolute immunity in a case brought against him by a Democratic congressman for inciting the January insurrection on the U.S. Capitol. An attorney for the former president argued that allegations against Mr. Trump were in contravention of the absolute immunity conveyed on U.S. presidents and that the 74-year-old's words were taken out of context. According to Mr. Trump's attorney, quote, the president's absolute immunity forecloses the jurisdiction of this court, close quote. Now, in reality, folks, this concept of absolute immunity has a long and distinguished history of being rejected by federal courts. In 2008, a Washington, D.C. federal district court judge named John Bates, heck of a good judge, ruled that there's no such thing as absolute immunity. And that was in a case brought by George W. Bush's administration, trying to claim that the administration enjoyed this notion of absolute immunity, sort of a magical immunity. And Judge Bates said, no, rejected, go away, no such thing. You want a more recent precedent? How about last summer, July of 2020? When the Supreme Court rejected Donald Trump's claim of absolute immunity in his tax return and financial documents case. The Supreme Court said, no, there's no such thing as absolute immunity. Now, Mr. President, go back to New York because your tax returns and financial documents have been subpoenaed and you are not absolutely immune. Now, to be sure, there is some limited immunity for government officials when they are acting within the scope of their official governmental duties. Let me give you an example. If Congress passes a piece of legislation and sends it to former President Trump, and he decides to veto that legislation, and this angers a bunch of citizens, and they sue him. They bring suit because they don't like the fact that he vetoed legislation. He would actually enjoy limited immunity against that lawsuit. Why? Because as president, when you sign or veto legislation, you are acting within the scope of your official duties. You know when you're not acting within the scope of your official duties? When you incite an insurrection, when you tell your supporters to go stop what's going on in the U.S. Capitol, when what's going on in the U.S. Capitol is the rightful winner of a presidential election, Joe Biden, his win being certified. That's kind of the opposite of being within the scope of a president's official duties. Donald Trump has no immunity, limited, absolute, magical, or unicorn immunity. And that is why this lawsuit against him will not be dismissed, and it will proceed to discovery, in my opinion. So let's turn to the other folks who are trying to get away for their involvement in the insurrection, and that would be members of Congress. It looks like they are hoping for their own special kind of absolute immunity. I think Vox summed it up nicely with this headline: any bipartisan January 6th commission is probably doomed. Well, we know that the Republicans in Congress will be voting against a congressional commission to investigate the attack on the Capitol. But this one's not hard to unravel. This is not exactly a difficult puzzle to piece together. You know, think about this. A bank robber would never vote in favor of an investigation into bank robberies. A carjacker would never vote in favor of an investigation into carjackings. And Republicans in Congress will not be voting in favor of an investigation into the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. But an investigation will be conducted, and an investigation is being conducted by the Department of Justice as we speak. 450 arrests or so and counting. And that investigation is working its way up. And that investigation will determine who organized the insurrection, who supported it, who funded it, who encouraged it, who incited it. And all those folks will be brought to justice. They have to be. Because justice matters. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.